Hi and welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me today when I'm going to be talking all things binding, and I'm going to be talking things that use the binding method. So things like tabs for wall hangings or any sort of edging for a project. So it could even be the edge of a pencil case, a pocket on a pencil case. So I've called this my 1, 2, 3 binding method. So you will have no doubt seen but it's called bias binding. Let's just call it binding tape, and you can buy it on a reel like this. And this is a lovely floral fabric that's absolutely beautiful, and it's nice for a simple project where you just want to use a ready-made off-the-shelf binding for a quilt or a blanket or anything that's quite quick. What I like to do, as I have on this project, which is Rosie Rabbit's picnic blanket, which is the Moda fabric, I have made a plain red binding which matches the plain red that I've got in the quilt itself. And I'm going to show you how to do this, and also to give you a mitered corner. Really simple. It looks really complicated, gives a really great effect, but it just gives a really nice mitered corner. And all you need for my 1, 2, 3 binding is a ruler, your rotary cutter, your a cutting mat. So I've just got this small cutting mat here, your iron, and some fabric. This fabric is just a jelly roll. It's cut from 2.5 inches wide, or you could use whatever inch wide that you will fit the project you're working with. So let's get sewing. Okay, so I have already got my 2.5 inch jelly roll piece. If you haven't got a 2.5 inch jelly roll, then obviously you would use your ruler and your rotary cutter or scissors. Just to explain while I'm here, this tape here, I use a bit of the tape on my my ruler, because I cut a lot of 2.5 inch strips. So because this is the 1/2 inch on that edge of the ruler, I just put my tape there, so it's a quick guide when I'm cutting, so that I don't have to keep checking the ruler. So that was just a quick thought while I was there. So here's my jelly roll strip, 2.5 inches wide, and this is the 1, 2, 3 binding method. So the iron is on, it is hot. I like to use a bit of best press or starch because it really helps to crisp up your fabric. So I give it a nice press to secure and crease, to get out any creases. I fold the fabric in half. So that's fold 1, step 1 of the 1, 2, 3 binding method. Open it up so that the crease is facing down, and then it might be a bit difficult to see on this fabric. So then I'm going to fold that piece in half to the crease, and this is stage 2 of the 1, 2, 3 binding method because it's my second crease. And as I fold that, you'll notice it's not quite going direct to the crease because I want to not leave a little gap, so you're not giving too much bulk when I fold that in the center. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Turn that round, fold this half to the center again, and this is fold 3 of the 1, 2, 3 binding method. Nice crease, and then you fold the whole thing, so you've got the piece of fabric here, the center crease, 1, 2, 3, and then you fold those to the center and fold it in half again, and just give it that nice final press so it really scores that center crease, and there is your binding made. So you can see that here I've just got the flat piece of fabric. So let's do that again here. It's not a very big piece of binding, this. I've just made a very small quilt to show you how to bind around the edge and how to get that beautifully mitered corner with this method. Best press or starch just really helps to give the fabric a bit more stability, a bit more structure. Turn it around, and just sharpens it up really, so that it's much more easy to handle, and just allows you to give it that real firm crease and fold in half. You see, this time I'm folding it towards me because it's just so easy. 1, 2, 3 binding. And my final piece, let's give that a spray. Get the creases out to start with, and then fold in half and press. Now this is not bias binding, this is just straight cut fabric, so there's no stretch in this material, but you can do exactly the same method if you're making bias binding. So you've cut it on the bias on that 45-degree angle, exactly the same. Just be a little bit careful because that fabric, obviously with being cut on the bias, will be a little bit more stretchy. That's all you need to be careful of, so that you don't stretch it. So that's more of a press than I'm just sweeping along the fabric here. It's more of a press. So that's the first crease, the second crease, the third, 1, 2, 3 binding. And then this time I'll fold it away from me and crease. So that's nice and tightly pressed. So that whole piece of fabric, which is just the length of a jelly roll strip, is nicely pressed now with that 1, 2, 3 binding method. Now for the next piece. I have got my mini quilt here. So again, you can see this is just striped using that jelly roll fabric. This is that lovely the batik, you know, the Bali pops. Absolutely love this. So the fabric is the same on both sides. Oh, it's just beautiful, beautiful feel, beautiful texture, and just looks so luxurious. So I've got a quilt sandwich there. So I've just sewn these strips together. I've got a piece of H640 in the center, and I've got exactly the same for the back piece. So I will, this side with your H640, this is the glue side. You can fill it quite easily because it's the bobbly side. So I'll fuse that, just place my binding there on my knee, fuse that together. You just need to give that a gentle press, and what that does, it loosens and almost melts really the glue, those glue little bubbles on the H640. So it melts them, the heat melts those, and it turns it into a glue and sticks it to the fabric. So now when you pick that up, that H640, that wadding is fused. Now that doesn't work for the other side, it's not double-sided. So what you can use is, I've got some 505 spray here, give that a little spray, and then that's just a temporary adhesive spray that you can then just secure your back panel onto, and then that's attached as well. Ooh, press it down a bit more, and that's nice and attached. So you've got a lovely quilt sandwich there. And here we go for this technique used in action, as it were. So let's line myself up. I need my clips, my little quilt clips. You might want to use pins, which is absolutely fine, either or, but I prefer the clips because they're just so easy to take off when you're actually sewing. So I'm going to put a clip at the beginning. Because this is not a very big quilt, I mean, you can do this on a massive quilt, doesn't matter what size it is. I'm just going to pop another clip there, and I'm going to show you here close up how this works. So your binding is face down so that the creases are facing down towards your quilt. Take it up to the corner here, give yourself plenty of slack to move it with, and then you bring this across, right in the corner here, you bring it across so that you're then going across this way. And what's happening here is that piece is going straight up to that top edge, and you've got this little flap, this 45-degree angle. Now you at this stage don't have to worry too much anything about angles, you don't need your ruler, but you're just popping that down. So it makes a nice neat angle, and you're just at this stage popping a clip on there, and that's all. So we'll go along here, do the same at this corner. So you're taking this binding right up to that edge, and then here exactly the same, turn it round, and then you're folding it back towards yourself and then back keeping it flat almost, because those creases are nicely indented, but don't worry, they won't get lost. And then you're just pulling that back towards this right hand side. Pop a clip on there. So you've got that nice 45-degree angle, but it doesn't have to be too precise. And pop a clip in there. So at this stage you've just got this nicely secured with your clips. And when you sew, I'm going to show you this close up in a second, you're sewing on that first crease. It's quite tricky to see. It's here, that first crease is here. I can see it because I'm very close to it. Just there, look. So you're sewing here. You're not using a 1/4 inch seam, you're not using a 1/2 inch seam. You're sewing on that crease line. And then when you get to the top, you put your needle down at this point. This is where you have to be careful, because you then take this clip off and you free up this fabric here. You free it up and then you sew across here, and then you do the same in this corner. But I'll show you that as I'm sewing it, but I just wanted to talk you through it because obviously when you've got the machine it's a bit more tricky to explain. So here we go. Let me move my little table out of the way so you can see. So here we go. So hopefully under the light you can see that crease more easily. So pop the material under. Oh, and away we go. So I've just using a straight stitch on a size 2.4, just a standard straight stitch. I'm sewing across, taking this off, across that crease line. Now as you near the corner of your quilt, I'm going to release that clip now and make sure that this is freed up, all this bulk in the corner, and we're going to sew up to the same amount. So if you measure this, let's just get a tape, my ruler, just to give you an idea. So this is a 2.5 inch jelly roll strip, and that fold is about 1/2 inch here. So then this edge, you're going to stay within 1/2 inch of this top. When you sew, you're going to lower your needle at this point. So keep going, going, going. Don't worry too much, it doesn't have to be exact because you can sort that out when you bring your binding to the front. Needle down. Now notice how this is free at this stage because you don't want to tack it down. Pull your, put your foot up, pivot your fabric, and then here is where you just have to be a little bit nifty with your fingers. So now you're almost changing the direction of that fold. So you're taking it, take the needle up, take the needle up. Oh, my Juki doesn't like it. Lift the foot and then take it across. So just pull it tight and lower the foot, and away you go. And you carry on along that crease. Keep sewing, and you can see where I'm not a big clipper or pinner because of exactly that, that it, once you start sewing it kind of puckers up. So remember how I had this here, so that's just held loosely at this corner. Keep sewing till I'm 1/2 inch, roughly 1/2 inch from the edge, and you can see where on that corner there, and lower the foot, higher the foot there. So you've got your needle down, sorry, not your foot. The needle is down, your foot is raised, and then you pull the fabric to the corner again. Let's just lift that needle. My Juki won't let me do anything without it saying, hang on a minute, you haven't raised the foot. Talks to me, and that's his voice, I'm sure. Lower the foot, and away we go. And sew straight down, making sure that this is free, because if that gets caught up it won't work. And then go all the way down, staying on that crease line to the bottom, and finish. I'm just going to cut that off because my binding doesn't need to be any longer. Okay, let's go back to the table. So here we are. So let's have a look at this lovely quilt. So you can see it's secured, the binding is secured all the way around the edge. And what we're going to do now is take this binding and we're going to push it to the edge. And if you push it across, you can see how that crease automatically makes an absolutely perfect mitered corner. Just automatically, if you just give it a quick gentle push, it will crease and take itself there. And that's what I love about this binding method. This corner the same, you just need to push it over and there is your beautifully mitered corner. So then you can turn the quilt the right way round. I mean, there isn't really a right or wrong here because they're both the same fabric. And then you clip again. So I'm going to use the top edge. Now when you pull your binding across, make sure you cover in this stitch line because you don't want to see that. So you cover in the stitch line, clip and clip. And I'll just put one in here. As I said earlier, I like the fabric quite loose so that I can, as the tension changes as you're sewing, you can just pull it with your fingers, but clips do just keep it in place, or you could pin, quite easily pin this like that. And then here's your mitered corner on the front now. So you fold this down, bring that edge across, and then you just fold that corner at a 45-degree angle and clip that in place. This definitely needs a clip to hold that. You see how nicely folded that is. Same on the other corner. Go across to the left and hold your finger there. Bring this one up and it just almost folds itself into a 45. That's just pulling there. Just need a little bit more slack. A 45-degree angle, which is nicely mitered, and I'll use that clip there. And now you have the choice. I'm going to machine stitch this today for the demo, but you could, if you wanted just invisible stitching, because that's a beautiful clean edge on the back, you could hand stitch that so that you just do a slip stitch and it hand stitches that down. But today I'm going to use the machine so that it's nicely stitched and you can see the top stitch around the edge, and then we're done. And that just shows how simple it is. So I'm going to make sure that that binding is now pulled over the lower stitches below, and make sure my threads are there, and away we go. It's just a plain top stitch. That's it. And I'm just sewing right up against the edge of that binding. That's where I like to sew the binding down. See, it's just coming away there, so it's not quite, wasn't quite covering the stitches. So you just pull it. Don't be afraid to pull and manipulate the fabric to where you need it. That's absolutely fine. And then keep your needle down, pivot the foot or pivot the material around the quilt and go again. And just stop and pull, so it's always where you want it. I think sometimes when we're sewing, we can see things going awry, can't we? And we kind of think, oh my goodness, we can't stop it. But you can, just take your foot off the pedal and readjust and start again. It's absolutely fine. Take that clip out and again, just manipulate this fabric so you've got a nice 45-degree angle. It's a bit tricky. There you go. Keep going until the needle is just over. You heard the needle sort of push through there because you've got, what have you got? 2, 4, 5, 6 pieces of fabric in that corner and the wadding. So you've got a fair amount of fabric to get through the needle, for the needle to get through. And pull the binding across. Make sure you're covering those stitches and away we go. And we'll stop. You've got to imagine that that's a much bigger quilt. I've just done the top edge. Okay, so let's go back to the table and I'll show you what that looks like, and we'll give it a final press and then we're all done. So let's give that a nice final press. I love this binding method. It is so easy. It's so nice to do. I'm a little bit off shape on that corner. And it's so nice to do and easy. A nice final press. So you can see the top stitch is here, really close to that edge, and across here, and then on the front it's nice and neat. And that is how easy your 1, 2, 3 binding method really is. Hopefully you've learned now how to do the 1, 2, 3 binding method, and you feel more comfortable using it and more confident to use it in your projects. So anything that requires that binding edge or the tabs at the top of something, anything that requires that nice detail. And remember, you can do lots of different coloured strips to make a scrappy binding, or you can choose one of your favourite colours out of the project to do the binding in one colour, whether that's a pattern fabric or a plain. What I do like, one last thing, when you're using a scrappy binding, especially if you're using a few colours, you might have 9 or 10 different fabrics in a quilt, and to use the different scraps for all those fabrics really pulls the quilt or the project together. So that's something to bear in mind. It might look, you might think, oh, a bit scary, might look a bit too scrappy, but it really pulls all those fabrics together. So have a play. As I always say, fabric's fun, it should be enjoyable. Play with your fabrics, play with your products, and just have fun with it. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, please like, please comment, show me photos. You can get in touch with us on our website, which is mabelanddeb.co.uk, or you can email us at mabelanddeb@gmail.com. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.